Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. This is the Canadian Foreign Policy Hour coming to you from Jojage, which has long been a meeting place of various First Nations, otherwise known as Montreal. And today we're going to only be about 30 minutes because we're going to be doing a volunteer meeting for the NDP leadership campaign right after this. But it's actually going to be in a different link, unfortunately. It's not going to be the same Zoom link. So I'll offer that Zoom link pretty soon. And but yeah, I'll get right into it. Maybe we'll have a bit of time for some questions. I'm going to have some discussion. I will continue on to talk about my leadership, some stuff that's developed there at the start of the a follow-up meeting, and I should give you that link some point in a bit if people want to join that volunteer meeting. So to start off with is the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki that just passed. And I did a piece, it's kind of just an update on previous stuff written about Canada's role in uh, in the development of the bomb. Obviously, uranium. Canadian scientists spent lots of money researching and assisting, and C.D. Howe, the second most powerful minister in Mackenzie King's government, was involved in the discussions where the Americans brought bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki to the British Canadian officials that were involved in the research around the atomic bomb. And then Canadian officials basically celebrated Canada's participation in uh, in the technological development. And then basically, the piece I did, I just kind of go through over the years. Canada has never been has kind of a rhetoric of being against nuclear weapons, but has always supported nuclear weapons in NATO. You have right up until today, where you have the Trudeau government says it wants to abolish nuclear weapons, but then it won't actually oppose or won't actually sign or support the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which is backed by most of the world's countries. And Canada tries to undermine the conference that established that and has continued to not to reject the TPNW. So there's a whole history there of Canada's role in in nuclear weapons that is sort of a little bit under discussed and important, of course, to discuss on the 80th anniversary of this horrific bombing that left about 200,000 people dead, a bit more than half instantaneously, and then another 70 or 80,000 or so due to the consequences of the bombing. There's a story in the business press about how the Royal Bank will work alongside some of the world's biggest lenders to help create a new defense bank that could help Canada meet elevated military spending targets required by NATO. They're calling it the Defense Security and Resilience Bank, which is a new multilateral financial institution along the lines of the World Bank that will support defense-related investments made by NATO members and their allies. So it's a whole new. It's not exactly clear what the mechanics of it. They have a meeting coming up soon to establish it and to flush out, I guess, the details. But it's just to give you a sense of where everything's going on the militarist front, on all domains of corp economic and political life. It's just this push towards more military spending, more militarism, and this is just a new initiative in that context. On that note, there's a story on CBC headline: Canada, Carney wants to spend an extra 9 billion on defense by April. Is that possible? Uh, so they're just like trying to like just pump money out the door. I mean, April is what's that, about 7 months away, and they just want to. This is just the top up, right? The 9 billion extra that was announced on top of increases this year, but to get to that 2% that they announced just before the NATO summit, uh, and so it's just like a rush to how can we can spend more on the military. He, of course, this week announced a 20% boost in wages for the lower levels in the military, a big increase in wages. and that's designed to improve recruitment. There's some. It's not a very good wage that they make. I believe it bumps them up to 52,000, if I remember the number correctly. Um, and I mean it's all over. It depends on where you are and stuff like that. To the extent that that's the housing question. I think if you're anywhere around the GTA or even around Victoria, it's or probably Halifax. I think the housing costs have gotten so high, and I mean, there's sometimes there's housing on base and stuff like that, but there's big issues there. But anyways, the point here is that Carney is just trying to ramp up military spending, and uh, and this is just the start, right? It's going to keep going and going if they try to hit the 5%. There's a story in the New York Times that mentioned how the Spanish prime minister is seeking to count climate action as part of defense spending to hit the 5% NATO target. And I think that's kind of an important point because if you think about security, the security from the ever worsening uh, ecological disasters is obviously a very important security question, and we're seeing that across the country right now, where there are still, I believe it's in the hundreds of thousands who are displaced from forest fires principally, and that's obviously for those people who are displaced quite a significant security question, certainly more important than the danger of Russia or China or all the other threats that are hyped up to justify increased military spending. There's this week there the Reuters reported and then the Ottawa Citizen reported on it further about the F-35 review that Carney announced about, I guess it's probably about 5 months ago now. And the military basically decided that they want the F-35, which is not a big surprise. They wanted the F-35 long before Trudeau agreed to do that, and of course they've been pushing for this going back 15 years or so. And but this review, there's not much detail that came out, but the review apparently says that they should move forward with the full 88 F-35 purchase. Right now, I think it's 16 they've committed to, and the other 72 were sort of put up into discussion. It's not clear that necessarily that Carney will agree to this. He can still ignore this review, but I think at this point that's unlikely unless Trump does something really intense. That's unlikely. And I think one way to look at this is that even this is really the only thing I can think of where Carney has kind of come through on a little bit of his anti-US rhetoric, where he, put up the review because the Americans control the tech. They have sort of arguably that not exactly, but they sort of have a kill switch over the F-35. The This is one of the only things Carney's review of the F-35 that was seemed to be a somewhat of a genuine move. Now, the military is just completely committed to its relationship to the U.S. Uh, empire in the U.S. In the Pentagon. And so they want the F-35. They want the F-35 because it's what the US wants. It's interoperable because there's the big companies, Lockheed specifically, make a lot of money off of this. And so it's good for their relationship with their US counterparts. And so that's what's pushing forward. But it's really a sign, on so many fronts, they've just not paused even any of the accords, the hundreds of military accords we have with the US, the deployments, the training, officer exchanges, et cetera, et cetera. And now they're even on the procurement stuff, which Carney had been talking about how, oh, with 75% of the capital spending on procurement goes to US companies, arms procurement. And now even on this front, and there's been other examples, of course, where they've failed to move away from U.S. arms industry. And now on the F-35, seems like they're look set to concede as well. The also this week on Thursday, the Ottawa Citizen reported that the Defense Minister McGuinty, when he was down in Colorado at NORAD in mid-July, he confirmed that Canada is going to assist with Trump's Golden Dome, and the Canada has already effectively supported in different ways through NORAD U.S. Militarization of space, but this is just a step further down that path. And the Golden Dome, lots of details are a little bit unclear here. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, probably into the trillion. Uh, and Canada's part in this would probably be tens of billions. Trump, I believe, said it was going to be 61 billion, but you can just join the US. It can be 61 billion, or you can join the US. I think that was the deal he was offering at one point, at least. And the so this is just the weaponization of space. This is going to contribute to arms race. This the notion of the U.S. as a defense when it's got its bases all around the world and special operations all around the world. It's a defense of the U.S. after the U.S. Attacks another country. So this is not a good development at all on all kinds of different fronts, but it looks like Carney has committed to it. At one point, it was supposed to be an exchange for like tariff relief. It doesn't look like any of that's even happened. It's just one concession after another from Carney to Trump, and it's actually pretty stunning how kind of pathetic it all is with Carney. He continues, the sort of tough rhetoric during the election, and the polling shows the public wants a much more get tough on the U.S. Trump kind of posture, but Carney and his big business and establishment allies just don't want to go there. And the Golden Dome is the latest concession on that front. What we're seeing coming out of Gaza is just, I mean, it's just mind-numbing. Honestly, it's just the idea that they're going to make it even worse than it's been in recent weeks and months is just, I mean, it's just hard to even kind of wrap your head around. And of course, the assassination yesterday of five Al Jazeera reporters just working in a media tent and just targeted airstrike, wipe them out, boast about it. Yeah, he's a Hamas, whatever, whatever. Uh, it's just unbelievable. And there's a report, The Lancet, life expectancy at birth declined by approximately 35 years for Palestinians in Gaza, according to this Lancet study. Greater collapse in longevity than the record during the genocide in Rwanda, um, where it went from 42.9 to 12.2 in a short span. This is just, I mean, it's just a level of horror that's absolutely stunning, and we're just watching it all live stream. The Israelis barely even, the lies are just they don't even really. The effort is not even being put into the lies anymore. They just kill and know they can more or less get away with it. And the Carney in recent days, I guess I don't know, remember it was probably before last week. We didn't do an episode last week, of course. Canada officially recognized Palestine. Basically, it's recognizing Palestine as per Carney's brilliant formulation for a quote Zionist Palestinian state, and it's conditional. First of all, I think it's better than not. It doesn't. There's lots of negative within it, but it's better than not to recognize Palestine. But it comes with conditions. It comes with it comes with governance reforms, uh, but then blocks stated Hamas can't participate in elections. So we want you to be more democratic, but you have to exclude the political faction that won the most recent. Now it's 20 years ago, but the most recent Palestinian elections. It's it comes with this notion of demilitarization, and it's fascinating in his own statement. It shows you how like uninterested reporters are and how unknowledgeable they are. Because in the actual statement that Carney released in his conditions on this recognition, there's an announcement of a $10.5 million uh, contribution, and I don't have the exact wording in front of me. I wrote an article about this. People can look at the exact wording that I quoted, but it's something to the effect of a secure Palestinian authority or something to that effect language. And it doesn't state this anywhere, but and it's referencing some money that Anita Anand had announced a few weeks earlier. And most likely, I can't say for sure, but most likely that's money that is going to Canada's training, overseeing, vetting, whatever of the Palestinian Authority security force, and specifically the Operation Proteus. And there's about 30 Canadians who've been there for the last 20 years. The numbers have varied slightly over the years. And they've been basically building up a Palestinian security force to oversee Israel's occupation. And so when they talk about, he talks about a demilitarized Palestinian state. I mean, in that in of itself is totally an odious concept. Well, as Alex Terrell pointed out, like if Palestinians are demilitarized, who's going to protect them from Israel, right? Obviously, it's if there's one country, one entity that needs to be demilitarized, it's Israel that needs to be demilitarized, right? But in this statement, he's announcing money that's probably going to Canada's military training mission for the Palestinians. So basically, what he's saying is that we don't have any problem with militarizing Palestinian life, but so long as those guns are turned on Palestinians, not on the occupying force, right? That's what the PA force that Canada's training is designed to do, is to basically be an arm of the Israeli occupation. It's all overseen by the U.S., an arm of the U.S. occupation in the West Bank, and so that's part of the the recognition that Carney announced. We'll see where all this goes. Um, this about I think it's probably 10 days ago now. There was a very good report. Clearly, lots and lots of work done. I think mostly World Beyond War, Rachel, and I know many others involved in this work, PYM and others, but they did this very impressive report tracking Canadian arms sales to Israel, and they didn't just do cutting edge research on this, and that's to be celebrated, of course, but they also did very thorough media work. And you can't. I've experienced this enough that you can do the greatest media work you want, and sometimes media just doesn't cover it, and it's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I'm speaking here mostly about the dominant media, but they clearly had a whole strategy around left media as well, and then they got some success and broke into the core media with quite a big splash. And some of that I'm sure is a mix of just luck. You hit the right day in the middle of summer. Some of it is hard work. It's not unfortunately it's not a one-to-one. You can do hard work and not necessarily get those results because the media has its own biases, obviously, but also it's got its own, in different internal logics that aren't necessarily all about biases. But they had a big splash and really put on the agenda, in the dominant media, important form of Canadian complicity. And it's the really important point here is that this violates, we're still delivering bullets, right? Right, as of April, according to the report, still delivering bullets. Now, Anita Anand claimed they were uh, not darts. They were what is it? When you fake gun. I'm totally blanking. I didn't sleep much last night, but they are for the anyways, they're play guns, play bullet things. Very hard to believe that that's the case. But anyways, the Canadian government is still trying to climb. It's all a lie. There's no weapons, whatever, whatever. We know that that's not true, and the report shows that, and they more spin from the government. But this all violates the Export-Import Act, which have paintball. Yes, thank you. Paintball bullets or whatever. But the this all violates the Export-Import Act, which is that says you can't deliver weapons to states committing human rights violations. Now, to be fair on this, it's not just Israel. Canada delivers weapons to the U.S. all the time, and let's just say the U.S. is has been involved in a little bit of violence, but nonetheless, still, this is contrary to the at least the spirit of the law, if not the letter of the law. On that front, this week, that Jeremy Levy, the mayor of Hampstead, total fanatical, he had a post where he just basically celebrated a report about the Israeli cabinet saying we're going into Gaza, we're going to reoccupy, further occupy, maybe is a better term, and he says we got to go full throttle. This is Jeremy Levy, full throttle, and just this totally, I mean, a genocidal statement. Really, he's calling to further. We've been too lenient. You got to just crush Gaza or crush everyone in Gaza is essentially what he's saying. And there was pushback. I did a piece where, I mean, I was just quoting people that raised this, but that section 318 of the criminal code says, quote, every person who advocates or promotes genocide is guilty of an indictable offense. And also the Rome Statute, which Canada is a signatory, says that uh, it's criminal. You can be criminally liable for directly and publicly inciting others to commit genocide. And so I don't see how you don't how he's not involved in advocating genocide. Um, I'm not. The legislation does require the minister to okay prosecution, and and it also yeah. So it's mostly at a political level. But this is, he should be prosecuted, should be investigated at a minimum, and there should be a campaign. I raised that. I did an article quoting this stuff that different people on Twitter raised, and had put out an image about prosecuting Levy as part of the NDP campaign, and that got some attention, and it was, I think, a success. It's just Levy, the fact that 22 months into this they're still kind of pushing this kind of extremist position is remarkable to see. There was a story in Jewish Currents headlined "A Canadian Anti-Semitism Statistic Went Viral, but it has no source." And it talks about the statistic. I think it said it's 570% increase, or was it 670% increase in anti-Semitic incidents, and it went all over, got picked up all over, and there's no source to it. And CJPME apparently raised that back like 8 months or a year ago when it initially got going. But this Jewish Current article, it gave more meat to this, to what CJPME had raised, and they trace it and they can find that there is no, it's just appears to have just been kind of pulled out of midair. It's quoted, it's linked to some like Israeli, I think it's some hard right Israeli publication, but there's no source there for where they got this number. Um, but it of course fits with a lot of what we've seen, where there's just wild claims and often very little to back it up, and it's all, of course, designed to justify the crimes Israel's committed. There's a story. The CBC journalist went on one of these. There was I think it was the Canadian Forces dropped aid into Gaza, and it was sort of a PR stunt. And the Canadian Forces, the Canadian journalist CBC wasn't allowed on the Canadian Forces plane, but was allowed, and this is all being done in coordination with Israel. And as I pointed out, rather than this photo op from the military, just stop your ties to the Israeli military, right? And they don't. I'm basically certain Canadian military is providing intelligence. We've seen that with the Americans, of course, and the British. A lot of the flights, the British, there's been reports on that and on social media about British planes assisting Israel in flyovers and intelligence gathering. I don't know if Canadian planes are involved in that, but there's no doubt the communications security establishment is assisting the Israelis through the Five Eyes. There's a long-standing history there, but there's all the other ways the Canadian military has a formal security partnership with Israel, and there's been no effort or no talk, really serious talk about abrogating that amidst the Israeli military committing a Holocaust. So rather than this photo op of dropping some aid from the sky, you know, we're lessen Canadian military ties to Israel as a way to put pressure on the Israelis to end their Holocaust in Gaza, but that's not what the aim is. But anyways, the Canadian CBC journalist wasn't allowed on the Canadian Forces plane, but was allowed on a Jordanian plane. The Israelis allowed that, but then they were restricted from videoing above Gaza, and they followed it. And they mentioned this on the CBC report that I saw. But then there was I believe it was a French ITV, I believe it was a French journalist or camera crew or whatever that was on this flight, and they just I think they essentially ignored the Israelis, it's like remarkable footage of the destruction in Gaza, and so it just shows you the sort of the deference from a CBC journalist, like film it and then I don't know, force the Israelis to arrest you, or just ignore the Israelis. So the it's just a sign of the deference from the dominant media. So I'm going to try to wrap up. If people have a quick question, I can probably deal with one question, but I'm going to try to wrap up.
Their email.
I'm gonna send a link.
Someone there should have it though. I'm sure at least one person. would have it.
I'm on it.
Okay.
Just stop. Sorry, we're just trying to get coordinated for the next thing happening right after. I'm not sure if I'm seeing any questions. I don't have any. I don't think Laura's on tonight. But if there is any, okay, I see Lynn. Let's just try to do Lynn. Go ahead, Lynn.
So these guys were flying over Gaza and getting footage that has not been out in the media. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, the I think it was the French. They took the image, and it was horrible. It was a horrible, sight. But the CBC refused to break the rules. They followed what the Israelis wanted, which is pretty outrageous. Go ahead, Fiona. We only have another 30 seconds here.
Okay, I've been trying to draw attention, Yves, to the fact that there is finally a detailed article by Dylan Robertson in Global News Today about the whole question of military armaments to and from Israel, and the first real response from Anita Anand's office from her spokesperson on this issue. And if you look very carefully at exactly what it says to me that, of course, we're helping Israel with its dome. Fine, that's not a huge issue because, of course, it's defensive. The important thing to me is that they don't want to interrupt the supply chain that includes imports of Canadian military and military technology, of Israeli military technology.
Interesting. I haven't
It's
had
Bill Blair. It's Bill Blair we need to go after. And then has been covering for Blair. And Blair is a really hard case. In Defense Committee meetings, he would not answer any questions from the NDP on armaments to and from Israel.
Huh. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I haven't had a chance to look at the article, but
Yeah.
it's obvious that they are, continuing weapon sales,
And they're guaranteed battle tested on guess on whom?
Of course, on Palestinians. So just gonna, if anybody wants to come to the volunteer meeting, I'm gonna try to put this into the chat right now. So yeah, go ahead if anyone wants to. And then the volunteer meeting is starting now. Unfortunately, I can't continue. I'm going to probably try to do another at least 30 minutes next week. So yeah, it's a pretty busy times with the campaign stuff, but yeah, I'm going to end it here. And thanks a lot, everyone, and anyone who wants to come on to the volunteer meeting. It's happening now. We are really building up the volunteer. It's at about 600 people have already registered for volunteering. So yeah, thanks a lot.